Fuel prices are going up. Fuel prices have always gone up and down, and this is one of the things you're going to run into when traveling, especially when traveling long distances. So we're going to talk about some of this so you don't get shocks when you're on the road somewhere that you've never been before. So let's get to it. Fuel does play a large part in your travel expenses. It's usually my largest one if I'm on a long trip. Fuel is first, food is second. So it does matter. It does have an impact. And I do not pay attention to fluctuations of a few pennies. I do not drive around town trying to find the difference between somebody selling it for $2.19 and somebody selling it for $2.17. Because let's face it, you're filling up a minivan, it may have a 20-gallon tank. You need 15 gallons at 2 cents a gallon. You're talking about saving 30 cents. I just don't worry about things like that. I'm just not going to stress over that. But you hit those times like we're going through right now where gas is climbing pretty good again. These companies, these oil companies and things, and let's take politics completely out of it, and quite honestly, please don't put any political comments down below. It doesn't matter blaming one party, blaming the other party. It is what it is. These prices have been depressed. These prices are going to go back to normal. These companies are going to make their money, and that's just the way it is. So if you got to travel in the last year with these really low gas prices, good for you. I can tell you the times I was out there and the trips I took, it was nice. But unfortunately, they are going to climb again. You can hit these things at different times. I happened to be on a trip back when Hurricane Katrina hit, and I can tell you that I had problems in Virginia actually buying gasoline, enough gasoline to get back to home base. There's always the chance of one of these things happening, and you just deal with it. Any problem like that is going to work itself out within a couple of days anyway. There's no point in panicking over it. There's nothing you can do about it. You ride it out, the situation resolves itself, and you go on down the highway. Where you're going to be shocked the most with gas prices, and it doesn't hurt if you want to use a gas app, not so much to try to save a couple cents in town, but to try to figure out what the differences is from state to state. Because states have their own taxes that they put on each gallon of gas to fund their highway construction and all of that good stuff, road maintenance. And it can vary widely from state to state. An example of that is where I live. Gas in West Virginia is much higher than gasoline in Virginia because West Virginia has a higher tax rate. And a friend and I actually run into this awful situation a few years back because we're coming down the turnpike, Interstate 77, out of West Virginia back into Virginia, and this just happened to be an area where they were doing some bridge construction, so they had these lanes merged down into one lane to go across this bridge. There was a tractor-trailer driver that decided he was going to try to make it the next 10 miles to hit the Virginia state line where he could jump off and refuel. He misjudged, and he ran out of fuel right on that bridge, blocking that one lane where the bridge construction was going on. And the rest of us were backed up for miles and miles and miles until somebody got out there, got him fueled, and got him running again. It's just one of those oddball things that can happen when you're traveling. Another thing you need to be aware of, if you're from the East and you haven't spent time on the East Coast, another thing to be aware of is if you're from the East. There are a couple of places that you're going to pay more for gas. New Jersey is one of them, because I think in New Jersey you can't pump your own gas. You can't do it. You're not qualified to do it. Basically, it's part of job creation. They're going to create jobs by making sure someone has the job to pump your gas, and because of that, you're going to pay a little more for it. Like I said, in the East, I know New Jersey does it, and my understanding, I think maybe in the West, Oregon or Washington State, one of you can correct me whether I'm right or wrong about that down in the comments, but I believe they're still doing it also. But your big shock coming from the East, if you've never been there, is when you hit the West Coast. When you hit California, you hit Nevada, you are going to be in for fuel price shock. On average, it may be a little bit less, but on average, now you can plan on paying close to, if not, $1 a gallon more. So if you're used to $2.50 gas, except that when you're in California and Nevada and a few other states out west, if gas is $2.50 back home, it's going to be $3.50 that you're going to be pumping in your vehicle out there. And again, if you're doing a lot of driving and you're pumping 20-25 gallons a day into your rig, it's going to make a difference. But that's just part of travel, and as long as you know it and you know it up front, you can plan for it up front, and it's not that big a deal. So don't let these situations keep you from traveling and going out and adventuring. And if you hit that period that fuel does go really high for a while, you can always either, one, travel and adventure a little closer to home so you're not spending as much, or you can slow your travels down to where you're driving less, you're staying in each area maybe a little longer, maybe 4 or 5 days instead of 1 or 2 days, and that's going to even out the cost of fuel for you, no matter how high fuel goes. And we've all been through this. We've all been through this several times in the last 20 years. Those that were old enough to be driving cars in the early to mid 70s went through this stuff. It happens. It will happen again at some point. The thing is, I don't know when that point is. You don't know when that point is, and none of these experts on television and radio, they don't know for sure when it is either. Something will happen. There will be some conflict in another country. There will be some hurricane that hits the wrong thing. That will be the excuse to drive the prices of this up for a while. We'll just have to deal with it, and like they always do, the fuel prices will come back down. The main thing is not to panic. I can remember, and you probably can remember too, about 10 years back, the fuel prices all jumped sky high. Every expert that had to do with stocks, every expert that had to do anything money-wise was coming on TV telling us how this was going to get worse. And they were all making their predictions. In another month, fuel will be $150 a barrel. In another month, fuel will be $200 a barrel. That's guaranteed. There were even a lot of people that had money that listened to these fools and speculated on buying gas futures. And they lost a lot of money by listening to these fools. These people aren't psychics. They don't know. Fuel never got up there to that $150 to $200 level that they were guaranteeing. It started going the other way, and it continued to fall, and we enjoyed decent gas prices for the better part of the last 10 years. The main thing is just to get out and enjoy yourself. If you're just looking at this stuff and you haven't gotten started yet, don't let all of this other stuff, this side stuff, distract you from what you want to do or what you want to try to do. And that's to convert whatever you have or to pick up a cheap van, start working on it a little bit, and start going out and adventuring and camping and enjoying yourself. Because at the end of the day, that is the only thing that matters. If you're wondering what to watch next, here's a couple suggestions on van life stuff, buying your first van, different things that may interest you. We'll talk soon.